Let's start. Let's start.
10. From the cool darkness of the class, Rupali stepped into the brightness of the corridors and the lawns of the college. She loved the energy of the college and counted her blessings that she was a part of it. As promised to Rahima, Rupali arrived at Shafi's tea shop. Saloni too had wanted to join her and meet the mysterious stranger, but Rupali had said no because if by chance she got late, Saloni could take notes for the both of them. Outside the college gate, from a distance, she could see Rahima at one of the tables at Shafi's tea shop. She was sitting with a guy whose back was towards Rupali. On seeing Rupali, Rahima got up from her seat and waved at her. Rupali smiled and walked towards them. She arrived at the table and stood behind the guy. She paused for a moment to take off her bag from her shoulder and arrange her dupatta. Rahima looked at the guy and said, Bhaiya, Rupali Didi has come. The person turned back to look at Rupali. Rupali Didi, this is Arjun Bhaiya. Rupali recognized him immediately. An uncomfortable feeling took over Rupali. She had never thought that the person Rahima wanted her to meet would turn out to be the one whom she had practically hated in her mind. She had no idea how to react to the situation. Since he had been around her the few times she had been in trouble or there had been some problem, she would started thinking of him as her trouble man. Ah hello, sir, she greeted him shyly. She wished she had inquired more about Arjun from Rahima before landing up in front of him. Or maybe, at the very least, she should have let Saloni accompany her. How she repented her decision. Arjun looked at her and smiled as if he had never met her before. Please sit, he said. Rupali took the seat next to Rahima, which meant that now she was sitting directly in front of Arjun and looking into his eyes, which made her very uncomfortable. When Arjun shouted and ordered tea for the ladies, they both refused. Rupali said no a couple of times. But Arjun did not bother to cancel the order. Instead, he asked her if she drank tea. When she nodded, he sat back as if he had proved a point. Shafi added his two bits. No one says no to tea when it is ordered by Arjun Bhaiya. Rupali was very irritated with the statement. But Rahima agreed as a courtesy. Rupali agreed because she was intimidated by his strong personality. All this while, visions of her initial interactions with Arjun kept flashing in Rupali's mind. She hadn't forgotten the interrogation on her first day on campus by Arjun. To add to it was the mob attack on her music audition day, where she had seen Arjun standing outside the class while his group vandalized the setup. Now she had a name to associate with that face, Arjun. It was the first time that she got an opportunity to observe him from across the table they shared. On this day too, Arjun was in front of her in his typical attire, a kurta, a pair of jeans and leather slippers. He had a stubble that suited his face. Arjun was tall and well built. His whitish skin color added to his rough and tough looks. His body language was slow and deliberate. His voice commanded attention. Arjun Bhaiya Mahajan sir ko achi se jati hai. Arjun Bhaiya knows Mahajan sir well. Rahima broke into Rupali's silent observation of Arjun. For a second, Rupali felt embarrassed. Didi mein baat karta han. Didi let me talk. Arjun spoke, cutting off Rahima mid-sentence and took over the conversation with Rupali. Hi, I am from second year arts. I am a localite, meaning I don't live on campus. I am one of the senior members of the political party in opposition in Due. Arjun introduced himself. I have known Rahima Didi for more than a year now. I am also aware of the kind of animal Mahajan is. I have a fair idea that he has been creating problems for certain staff members in college. But I am not well versed with the exact matter. What Rahima Didi told me last evening is very little for me to understand, but I'm wondering why she didn't tell me earlier. Perhaps she was scared of someone. So you give me the details and let's continue to talk in English to save her from embarrassment. As he finished, he turned towards Rahima. She was innocently trying to understand their conversation and nodding. He smiled. आपको बाद में बातेंगे सारी बात. We'll tell you everything later. She nodded. More strongly this time. Rupali smiled. That was sweet of Arjun. Then she began to narrate all that had occurred in the past week. At times, she struggled to choose her words. The thought of describing a woman's molestation at the hands of a man to another man, against whom she already had her preconceived notions, bothered her. To add to her difficulty was the presence of Rahima. Just a change of language was not going to make it easier for Rupali. How could she, in her presence, paint Rahima as if she were a toy in Mahajan's hands? How could she tell him that it wasn't a one-off incident, but that Rahima had to fulfill Mahajan's demands whenever he desired? She found it difficult to complete her sentences, appearing at a loss for words. Yet she didn't stop till she finished all she had to say. Arjun could clearly see her discomfort, but thought it was better not to interrupt. Poor Rahima, even though she didn't know what exactly they were saying about her, she knew the import of their discussion. She didn't have the courage to look into Arjun's eyes, the same Arjun whom she had called Priya all this while. She silently kept sipping the tea that had just been brought. On the other hand, as the dark secret of what Mahajan used to do to Rahima unfolded, Arjun became restless with anger. Rupali could clearly see Arjun's body language transform. She could see that he had clenched his fists and his eyes had become slits, and he was staring angrily into the distance. She got scared and stopped. It took a while for Arjun to notice that Rupali wasn't speaking. When he realized that, instead of looking at Rupali, he turned towards Rahima, who didn't know what to say. In her own eyes, she was the culprit first and then the victim. Somewhere in her conscience she believed this ill fact. The poor lady thought she was equally responsible, as Mahajan, for her fate. She didn't have the guts to face Arjun. She had known Arjun for a long time now. From helping her with money when her daughter had fallen ill, to facilitating her paperwork at the college premises, Arjun, on various occasions, has been Rahima's angel. On the other side, there had also been occasion when Arjun had asked Rahima to pray for him, especially during his exams. There had been times when Arjun had visited Rahima's house to break the roza for the day at iftar. He would eat fruits and puddings that Rahima would specially cook for him. But while she was wondering about how she would face Arjun now that he knew the truth, Arjun was contemplating the depths to which Mahajan had fallen to molest poor Rahima. He felt sorry for all that Rahima had gone through and realized that he had really not done anything for her. आपने मुझे पहले कभी ये सब क्यों नहीं बताया, Didi? Why didn't you tell me all this before, Didi? He asked softly. He didn't want to scare her away. Rahima relaxed. Arjun's gesture showed that he cared for her. Suddenly overwhelmed, she could not hold back her tears. In response to Arjun's question, she only joined her hands. She wanted to say something, but she choked with tears. Arjun immediately held her hands and tried to console her. Rupali too got up and reached out to Rahima to help her control her emotions. She rubbed her back and asked her not to cry, and rather face this with strength. Thankfully, there weren't any other students at Shafi's shop as by then the break was long over. The only people to notice the three of them were Shafi's boys who worked at the tea shop. ये आपकी गलती नहीं है, Didi. This is not your fault, Didi, Arjun said. Rupali added to it by reminding her that it was a courageous move on Rahima's part that she had taken a stand to fight against Mahajan. I am so proud of you, she said. Arjun too agreed. Together they talked about how she probably had had no other choice but to sacrifice her life for the future of her daughter. Instead of letting Rahima feel guilty, the two of them tried to make her feel proud of the sacrifices she had made in her life. When Rahima continued to sob, Rupali went behind her and took her in her arms. Rahima looked up at Arjun, who was smiling. Rahima smiled through her tears. That brought the much needed closure. Arjun was impressed with Rupali's simplicity and honesty. Once they were more in control of their emotions, they settled down to talk again. Rupali felt that it would be wiser for Arjun and her to talk in Rahima's absence. Arjun agreed. He asked her if they could meet in the evening. Rupali thought for a bit and then agreed. Great, so give me your cell phone number, he asked. Ach, Rupali hesitated. All of a sudden, the idea of sharing her mobile number with someone like Arjun bothered her. Why was he asking her to give him her mobile number? She wondered how to tackle this awkward situation. She hadn't anticipated it. It happened so fast. She wasn't even prepared to react to it. But how would she refuse? Arjun seemed to have guessed her predicament. I am not asking you to share your number. Just take mine, in case you need it before we meet to discuss this, he said with a smile. How fast he had read her mind. It's not like that, she said embarrassedly. But Arjun didn't respond. He dictated his number and Rupali saved it. Shall we meet by 5:30 in the evening then? Asked Arjun. 5:30 alright. Shall I come here? Rupali asked. This tea shop will be closed in the evening, so we can meet somewhere else. I will see you outside your hostel. Oh, where exactly outside the hostel? Let's meet at the same place where you had planted that sapling. 11. Oh, look at that.